So OIT, the Governor's Office of IT, my nickname is becoming blockchain in the State House. Hey, blockchain, yes, because I know crypto is one of my things coming up with that. And then a data privacy bill I'm working on. So, things that are non-controversial unless you're a business, interested in those things. But anyway, so that's me. I'm a lifelong Republican, but I'm here in my capacity as your representative. So thank you for having me. I know some people take heat for that kind of thing, but I really appreciate the spirit of bipartisanship and friendship, especially coming from a nonpartisan office to begin with. It's very nice to be here and see so many friendly faces. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Representative Susan DuBose.
Thank you. Thank you all for having us here. I'm Representative Susan DuBose. I live in Hoover, and I'm on the 280 side of Hoover. So my district ranges from Chelsea to Irondale. So about 70% of my district is in Shelby County, and the part of Hoover I live in is in Shelby County. So I ran for office about 3 years ago. We all came in at the same time. So we're what's considered the freshman class. We're the newbies. But I will have to say I love what I'm doing. It has become just my passion. It's a full-time job for me. I was originally in the finance industry. I was in banking, and I thought that's what I was going to do my whole life because I studied numbers, got a finance degree, got an MBA, worked for Compass Bank, and then I had children, and my life changed, and I became a stay-at-home mom. And loved doing that. I was a volunteer in the community, and I loved being active and engaged in the community and the schools in my church. Then my kids grew up, and I thought about going back into banking. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Banking had changed so much, what it really used to be. Thought about being a teacher, and I still may do that. That might be my fourth career. But I ended up just running for office, and I just love it. I love what we're doing tonight. Believe it or not, this is probably at least my third panel where I have been probably, if it weren't for you guys, the only Republican in the room. So a week ago, I did just a panel with Black journalists, which was so fabulous. Art Franklin, some people that y'all probably know that are well known in the press industry, but they have a group of Black journalists, and they invited myself and Representative Datcher, who's a Democrat, and we just kind of talked to them and had a great time, had some great questions. And then also this week, I was on a panel with the Junior League. I was the only Republican. I think there was 5 Democrats and me. So I do a lot of this. I think it's important for us to listen to each other and have respectful conversation and respectful debate and realize that a lot of times we're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. We can disagree and still be friends. My very best friend, I was just telling the doctors back there, our very best couple friend that we travel the world with are Democrats. And there's things we don't agree, but there's a lot of things that we do agree on. So much so that we choose to spend our time traveling together when we could spend time with anybody else. So, there will be some questions that come out tonight, and we'll just have to say, we disagree on that. But your opinion is valuable, and I want to hear it. And then I'll hope you'll respect when we have a difference of opinion. So anyway, that's probably longer than I was supposed to talk.
It's okay.
But thank y'all for having us here. Oh, real quick. I hope somebody will ask me about school choice. I love school choice. I want to explain it to y'all because sometimes there's a lot of misinformation floating around. And I just want to explain to y'all what we're doing as a state with regards to school choice because it's a fabulous opportunity for some people. Most people are going to stick with our public schools, which is great. We have, of course, terrific public schools in Hoover. But there are some people who may want to choose to go to another school, and I'll just like to explain it to y'all.
All right.
If you're interested.
Representative Hulsey.
Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, Susan likes to talk, and so do I. We're 2 of the chattiest freshmen in the body, but I'm Leigh Hulsey, and I'm excited to be here tonight. I will echo a lot of their same comments. I serve at arguably the largest portion of Hoover. Mike and I debate this. I have about,
You have a couple percent more.
I have 36% of Hoover, so I have a pretty large chunk of the city of Hoover. And my district covers Helena, Hoover, Bessemer, and McCalla. I'm a little bit opposite of Susan. I have about 75% of Jefferson County and about 25% of Shelby County, and I reside in Shelby County in Helena. I will say early on coming into this role, Hoover embraced me and has taken me in. I feel like I am a part of your community, very much so, and I'm thankful for that. I kind of like Mike, come from the local public service arena. That is where I cut my teeth, so to speak. I got elected to city council in Helena in 2008, and then got elected again for my fourth term in 2020. And then in 2022, I was elected to the State House to serve with these two and I guess 23 other fabulous Republicans, and I think it was 6. I don't know if Kelvin's in here, but it was maybe 5
He was here a little while ago,
or
but he went to
6.
get something to eat, so.
Okay, it was 5 or 6 new Democrats, and we're all freshmen together, and we all just kind of like, I don't know, they haze us, so we just all put up with it together. But I was talking earlier to Barbara over here, and I said, honestly, my hope is that tonight what you see is a group of individuals that care about what you think, period. Whether we agree or we disagree, we still care about what you think. And then when we're working in our body, one of the things I think I'm honestly most pleased with is how much of our legislation is passed almost unanimously. There is very little work in this state that is passed partisanly. And I think that speaks well of our ability to work very good together in the two different parties to make sure that we're trying to do the very best that we can to move the state forward. So I hope that that becomes apparent as you get to know and hear from us a little bit tonight. But I thank you so very much for allowing us to come. It is truly a privilege and always an honor to speak to people that you serve. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Representative Hulsey. You just walked in the room, so everyone
I
say
just
hi
threw
to
you
Kelvin.
under the bus, Kelvin. No,
Put it on the chair, Kelvin, if you want to.
I don't know.
All right, so I have gotten a lot of questions. And again, to reiterate what Christian said just a moment ago, all 3 representatives have said, now, a lot of the questions are similar, so I'm not going to send every single one of them to these folks. They're not going to have time to answer all the questions that I was handed. But I'm going to ask some questions. Representative Hulsey, we're going to let you kind of lead the first little bit since you've got to leave in like 20 minutes. So I'll ask a couple of questions. Maybe you can respond first, and then I'll let the other folks follow up. But most of the questions are generally for everyone. And look, I'm going to read one that's, oh gosh, I put it over here, didn't I? That's been on my mind, and that is the U.S. House budget right now, as it's proposed, has an $880 billion cut to Medicaid proposed. So that's going to hurt a lot of people in Alabama. We don't know how much of that $880 billion will be cut out of Alabama, but we know it will be a lot. Does the state have a plan? If that budget passes, does the state have money to help those poor people? What are we going to do with them? What happens if $880 billion gets cut out of Medicaid? So,
sure.
any thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, quite honestly, that's a better question for the Department of Medicaid.
Okay.
Well, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that we do work on, that we're getting guidance from agencies that, let me back up, let's say this. We vote on stuff that touches all kinds of topics, right? And there's no way for us to physically or intellectually be gifted at all of those areas of study. So we do have to rely very heavily on feedback from agencies, those that work in those particular departments or deal with those specific issues. So I'm not trying to be flippant and saying, I don't know. I'm never gonna tell you something just to say something. That's just who I am. I really don't know how that's going to impact us. There has been, to my knowledge, I've not missed any meetings, but unless something's happened sidebar, nothing has been discussed with us as a body right now. So we are really not being prepped at all for that yet. I'm sure they're watching it closely and would.
Can I ask this as a follow-up? Assume that budget passes and assume that Medicaid is slashed in Alabama. Do you know, maybe you don't, does the state have a plan to help those folks?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Those are the things I think that they would present to us at that time, but I have heard nothing.
Yeah, so none of us are on the budget committee, but they're usually pretty good, like what's the shortcomings from the 80-20 switch and for the employees, we're gonna have to call them. So they're pretty good, the budget folks are pretty good at presenting to us, hey, this is coming, these are our options. So I assume there'd be a lot of thought put into that. I know we have a lot of reserves to cover some of that. In general, the revenue discussion in Alabama, because we're pretty lean, you know, we're one of the lowest tax states in the nation. Generally, always comes back to gaming. Anytime there's a discussion with, we need to spend more on this, we need to spend more on that, it always comes back to gaming. Last year, we came really close to passing a lottery bill. I was a no on the first one just because I thought it was dishonest. I thought it was being billed as a lottery bill, but it really had all sorts of other stuff in it. People in my district didn't even know that huge casino in Jefferson County was being contemplated. So it was all squished together, so I didn't want there to be millions of dollars coming to advertising and education lottery when it was really something else. But the second bill came forward and it had removed all that stuff and it was purely an education-based lottery now. So if revenue would increase, I imagine the discussion would be, is if that money went away, that it would be about additional revenue, which almost always means gaming. So,
I think the main impact that's gonna have, of course, we don't know what's gonna happen federally. I mean, there's lots of speculation, lots of this. We don't know what's gonna pass, what's gonna happen. But I will say the one thing that I think it will most likely affect is our ability to expand Medicaid this year. Because the talk always was, if we expand Medicaid, we're gonna get 90% of that money from the federal government. We only have to put in 10%. So that was the talk about, we should do it because the federal government's gonna be paying it. Now, that's kind of up in the air. So I think the main impact we're gonna have is we probably won't even have a discussion about expanding Medicaid this year until we know more what's gonna happen on the federal level, since the states that have expanded Medicaid are really reliant on that federal money.
Would any of you be in favor of expanding Medicaid under a new regime, something that's different than that 90-10, something that expands Medicaid under a new budget? Would you be in favor of an expanded Medicaid? You're gonna say, I'll have to wait and see what it looks like
Yeah, I mean, I
specifically?
wouldn't speculate on something.
Okay, yeah, all right. So, let's see, so the next thing I want to ask about is UAB. There's a lot of folks here concerned about UAB. With a stroke of a pen, a couple of weeks ago, UAB lost, depending on the calculation, between $100 million and $160 million. We know it was a huge loss. I know as a lady who lives 2 doors down from me, whose funding got completely wiped out with the stroke of a pen. Who's one of the world's best breast cancer surgeons, lives right here in Birmingham, Alabama, and she may not be able to continue her work because of a policy decision at the NIH. What I just want to know from you guys is the state in a position to help UAB, to make up for any of that funding? Is there any plan, has there been any talk about what happens if UAB loses all this money?
So, I guess a couple of things. One, obviously we do not control federal, like anything going on federally, we have no control over that. And believe it or not, we don't just get to speak into that the way maybe people think we get to. Here's what I would say, is I fully believe that we have a lot of incredible things going on in that Birmingham area with UAB, the research that's taking place there. I have lots of friends that work there, that are doing research there. You've got Southern Research. There's a lot of incredible stuff that is coming out of this state as it relates to research. And I do not want to see those things impacted. When you talk about, are there enough reserves for this? No, we are a pretty bare bones budget. We spend quite to a $0, right? And the only thing that's ever being saved is done through some sort of legislation that's a rolling reserve, or it's something that's legislatively there to protect us in the event of some kind of catastrophic financial loss that could occur that we don't see coming, right? So if the answer is like, oh, we're gonna need the state to figure it out, our taxes are low. That's good for you guys, because you're keeping more.
Not always. I'd rather have park rangers than low taxes.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think it's better for you to keep your money than us to have your money. So that's just what, probably, I guess, one of those places where we'd have to agree to disagree. I think it is better.
I want low taxes and no jobs.
Okay. All right.
I like civilization.
All right. So that is but yeah, that's I mean, yes. Go ahead, Mike.
So what we're going. So I've worked 30 years. I've worked for 3 companies that two of them, I work for a bunch, because a tech person, you jump around all the time in the early stages, but I worked for .com, where we signed a lease one week, and we're shut down the next week. I worked for a company that slowly went away, and they had to merge, a couple years later. I'd learned enough by then, I'm not sharp as stick, but I learned to get out before that happened. And I worked for a financial institution that was put in conservatorship, and we turned it around. The companies that survived made tough decisions to start. The process we're going through right now, I don't know if these cuts are gonna stay. My main concern would be making sure that we're not unfairly, make sure that, our folks are looking out for us. If everything has, if cuts are happening, then you have it everywhere, and if we all need to be, work.
Cuts are happening.
So,
They are happening.
right, so, that's my main concern. So, if that money goes away, we're gonna have to either tighten our belts or come up with something, but, like I said, we have $1.8 trillion. What I'm saying is, this country is like those companies I work for. And we've gotta come up with a solution, and if we don't, we've gotten a little taste in 2008.
This is a government,
We got
not
a
a
little taste
business.
in 2020 with inflation. Those were just little tastes of what happens if we don't fix the problem.
Okay, on that point, and this is maybe a silly question, but is there any circumstance, I mean, I know, Republicans are always about lower taxes. Is there ever any situation in which you would say, okay, maybe it's time to rethink our property tax situation, for instance, where large corporations are taxed at extremely low rates? I mean, you could literally double Alabama's property taxes and we still have the lowest in the nation. Is there any circumstance in which you guys would consider making up some of that budget shortfall with
I would
higher
love
property
for the
taxes?
Republicans to hear you say that.
They just did. There are three people that.
It's like, it's too high,
I'll
high.
answer honestly on this. I love that our property taxes are the lowest in the nation. It allows the American dream of owning a home to be fulfilled. And for me, that is sacred. I'm proud of the fact that Alabama has the lowest property tax.
So to your point there, Representative DuBose, lots of people own homes in California and New York and pay a lot of
Not
taxes.
anymore, they
Yeah, well, they're
can't
served.
afford them.
Well, okay, we can debate that, but
Yeah.
California and New York are not bad places to live. So anyway,
We can debate that.
I just, so what I wanna say is, I mean, okay, so you could exempt every single homeowner in the state of Alabama, raise the taxes only on the people who are cutting down trees in my home county of Clark County, where they cut down trees, and they pay $6 a year on an acre, $6 a year on an acre to cut down trees, and they make tens of thousands of dollars. Is there no consideration to taxing those folks a little bit higher to help everyone else keep UAB open, for instance?
Talk to the people of Alabama. What do you think the vote would be on raising property taxes?
I know what the vote would be in this room.
I know what they would in this room, but
Property taxes are fair,
Yeah.
because the people who
That's-
own property can afford
That's
them
it, that's it.
differently.
Yes, that's what we would say is lower our sales taxes, let the poor not pay the higher percentage by paying 10% sales taxes almost everywhere you have to go in the state of Alabama, and raise the property tax on the people much more able to pay them. That's our
You know, we're working on raising. And that's been with
Yes.
bipartisan support.
Right, it also has a sunset clause in like a year,
I
so.
am in favor of us getting to zero grocery tax.
Okay.
In our state.
I think you just said something everybody can get behind.
That does not sunset. I
Okay.
think you're confusing that with the overtime tax.
Okay, got it.
So that is a
bad.
set, locked in,
My
and
fault.
as soon as we hit that growth number that was put in there to make sure
Yep.
we can continue to fund education, it will automatically roll off.
I would vote right now to eliminate all of
So,
that.
Okay.
and I think we can afford to eliminate.
Next
grocery tax.
Good news. Yes, next question, we're moving on. Okay, so, and Representative Hulsey, you gotta leave in a few minutes, so this is the subject that I got the most questions handed to me on. So Representative Hulsey, would love for you to address this, and then you have to leave, you can leave. And that is in regard to the proposed SB 4, the so-called librarian bill. So we, I
An
mean,
unofficial.
I'm not laughing at the bill, I'm laughing at the
I
bill.
mean,
I thought that was funny.
the thing that many people want to know essentially is, I mean, why in the world are you going after librarians? And what are you going after? And why is this a priority to the Republican Party?
So I hope this helps you understand where I was coming from when I was laughing. I actually worked a lot on this bill to change up last year because I actually agree. believe it or not, I just think through every piece of legislation that we're looking at. I'm not just this person that just walks in and I'm like, we're gonna rubber stamp it. Like, I care that it actually makes a difference and it's meaningful change. I do think that, at the end of the day, I don't even know that I don't know that that even makes it to the floor for a vote this year. I have no
I hope it
idea.
does.
But last year, when that bill was filed, one of the things that we were working on was making sure that we did take care of our librarians. And we were making amendments. I know Susan even worked with me on these amendments. But myself, Susan, David Faulkner, who also represents Hoover, worked actually very hard to try to mitigate some of those things that we thought were problematic. I'm not gonna say that what is filed right now, I mean, I have my problems with it. I do not have a problem with keeping, you may not agree on this part, I do not have a problem with keeping, and I believe this is right, keeping inappropriate children in front of children without parental consent. And so let me finish answering my question. So I don't have any problem whatsoever with that. I think that is reasonable to protect children, and I will never, ever not think that. However, I don't know that I agree that this is the right way to go about that. Okay?
Okay.
Excuse me, I work in a library. I would like to follow up on your statement there.
Okay, real quick.
Okay, I work in a library now, and I just have to ask, and this is to all of y'all, especially Rep. DuBose, because I know that you appreciate librarians. I need y'all to be specific in what you're talking about. Very specific.
Okay, very good. So Representative Shaw,
Exactly what you're talking
Representative
about.
Shaw has
because you're just
a
going
unique
off
position
the
here in
basic.
that his daughter actually works for the Hoover Library.
And my grandfather was a librarian, and we have two, in my district, I have two really good libraries. And answer your question, material harmful to minors is a well-defined legal term.
Please explain to me an example.
There's 3 or 4 court cases.
Not in the bill.
That's a follow-up question.
The bill
I
is
can't rattle
not-
off
the bill
the
is
top
so
of my head.
vague.
So anyway, and that's one thing about these bills. Please read the bills, and if you can,
Yes, we did.
follow up.
We
I'm not talking about this bill, I'm talking about, material harmful to minors is defined somewhere.
Okay,
Well,
how is that happening in the library? Please
Yes.
explain to me how that's happening in the
Yes, good.
library.
Okay, so yes,
Let me
and,
answer, can I?
yeah, you go ahead.
Please.
So, what I tell my librarians, because I don't think my 2 libraries are a problem, I don't think they're a problem, but there's a lot of exemptions for libraries that some librarians in the state and the nation have abused that exemption to kind of pick fights. And what I tell my librarians is, look, there are people picking fights with people they don't need to pick fights with.
What
And
are
as a
you
result, you see this really strong legislation.
Can you give an example?
The important thing to remember is that legislation is a process. What you see filed is not 99% of the time what's gonna pass.
We're here,
Okay.
we understand that.
Yeah.
So, what Leah's talking about is, there's a lot of things in that bill that I don't like, you know.
Please be
And I think
specific.
we're gonna fix it. We
I
gotta
can't,
follow
like,
up on
I
that.
haven't,
If you wanna email
I don't know
me
exactly what's in this one, I just know that I've read it once and I've read
You told
like
us to
100
read it.
bills.
You know, calm down, hey, whoa,
No, here's
everybody,
the point, I've
hold
read
on.
over 100 bills already this session, I can't retain pretty much anything that's in any
Right.
of them without.
So why read them?
To know if I need to work on it for changes, or if I need to kill it, or if I need to support it.
Okay, everybody, hold up a second. So Representative DuBose, if you wanna say anything about HB4?
HB4, okay.
About, or just in general, should we, I mean,
That bill is
I
a
would
work in
caption,
process.
should we be
Okay.
trusting
I will say that
librarians to
bill-
do their job? You know?
I will say that bill is a work in process, and what has currently been dropped is not what we're gonna end up voting on, if that gives you any comfort.
Please be specific. I have not gotten any single
We can't
specifics.
answer that question.
The bill is a work in process, so I can't tell you specifically.
If you got
what the
suggestions,
changes
you can
are
send them
gonna
to us.
be.
Yeah, there you go.
One of the reasons that Leigh and I, a lot of times, that we have signed up as co-sponsors of that bill is because we want to be part of the process. We want to be part of helping to make the bill be the best as it can be.
Why is it even there?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, maybe this is one of those things we can disagree on.
Yeah.
We believe that there are books that are inappropriate for a children's
Okay,
section.
yeah, it seems to
to
be.
that point, libraries already have
Okay.
policies
Hey, y'all, let's,
in which you can check them out with the parent present. That has always been a thing.
okay, right, so there you go,
Your
so,
responsibility.
So, yeah.
The
The only-
requires a 18 and under card, so the parent doesn't have to be present. The child would be restricted from being in the children's section
The
only.
parent signs them up for the card.
okay,
The
got it,
parent
so,
is the
all right,
responsible.
good, so,
party.
yes, I
But
mean.
some libraries like ours in Shelby County have an 18 and under. It's not at all accessible.
Not all libraries are like
Not all libraries are
what we're
like
talking
that.
Right, if I could just-
Libraries
I just want to put a bow on this, and I just want to say, I mean, please don't criminalize librarians. That's all I'm saying.
No.
I mean, it's just.
Criminalize librarians that follow the law.
Very good. Representative Hulsey, you need to go now. It's 7:30.
You got one more?
I got one more if you want to do it.
So much fun.
It's a tough one.
It's
It's a tough one.
He's having
So
fun, so she don't
this,
leave.
this is a tough one, but I like it. Okay. There's gonna be a lot of moaning in the room when I read this question, let me tell you. All right. So ICE has been around Hoover. They've been finding people in local businesses. They've been taking people off of construction sites. They've been coming into fast food restaurants. What should you be doing? What should the state be doing to protect the immigrant community?
I think truthfully, and this is part of what I like about tonight is like getting out here, but I honestly wish we were talking more about, seriously, I wish we were talking more about like state. A lot of that stuff is being, and I get it, we all have questions about federal, but it's really not what we do. So I think a lot of those things are.
There are a lot of immigrant bills that are in front of us.
They're not, they haven't come in front of us yet.
Okay.
I know that they're being looked at, and I'm honestly, in my area, it's not something that I have not heard from constituents about it.
Okay.
Don't have problems with it, but I know there are pockets in the state that are having some problems. I don't live there, so I cannot speak to what their community is struggling with. And I tend to always, I'll always be honest with you, I'll tell you what I don't know. But it's more helpful for me to communicate with you about the local issues because that's what I'm involved in. I don't get involved in the federal stuff. So I'm not, again.
Sure.
It's a hard one. I'm not sure yet. I don't even know what's going to come before us. There's a lot of negotiating that I know is taking place, but I'm not privy to those conversations right now because I work on different legislation and I serve on different committees, and so I see that stuff constantly that I'm having to work on.
Okay, have either Representative DuBose or Representative Shaw, have either one of y'all seen any of the immigrant bills, know anything about the various immigrant bills that are, because there are a bunch of
There's
them.
a lot out there. 1,000 bills get filed,
Right,
and a lot of them never even come to committee.
Right.
A lot of them never even come to the floor for a vote. We start paying attention to them when they move through. But I will say this, one of the governor's priorities and one of our priorities is to reduce crime in our state. A lot of that is inner city crime, a lot of that's being committed by 18 to 24-year-olds, a lot of that's gun violence. It's the city of Birmingham, it's the city of Montgomery, it's the city of Mobile, some of these inner city pockets. That is a priority for the governor, that's a priority for our whole state. So there is a whole package of crime bills involved
okay,
in that.
yeah, that's, so what I would say, I mean, I work for,
As far as that relates
Yeah.
to the immigrant
Right.
community,
Yep.
of course, we're not talking about immigrants that are here legally. Of course not.
okay, but Representative DuBose, so I
We're
need.
talking about ICE, which is a federal department,
Sure.
removing their goal. is
Illegal
we-
immigrants still
Sure.
have rights.
But
What we're talking about with ICE from the federal level, from what I understand,
Yeah.
is removing illegal immigrants that are here illegally that have committed crimes. That's what we've been told.
Okay, so that's
Something
that's
beyond
not-
that's not us.
We already do that.
So a couple things there, But coming into the country is not a crime, it's a civil issue, we know that. I mean, just because someone is here, because they came across the border when they weren't supposed to, that's not a crime. And I work for the sheriff's office, and I look at the crime, I look at statistics. But they might, but they're wrong. So, I mean, I'm a lawyer, I know this, it's not a crime, it's still wrong. So, okay,
My district is Elinor Road, a lot
Okay,
of
yeah.
Spanish-speaking folks there.
Okay,
Great
good.
Valley Elementary is in my district, I work with, a lot of, English and second language kids there. I've done a lot of stuff for international folks in my community, doing my best to recognize it. Hoover's a very diverse place, and that's great. Both our children have, friends from Mexico and Peru and all this. I don't know if they were legal, I don't know if they were, I didn't ask. And if I did, I wouldn't have understood their answer, they were those families. I spent many Christmas birthday parties at houses where I was the only English speaker there. So we have a lot of people in my district that would fall under that.
Right.
Nobody there has ever reached out to me with concerns about ICE.
Okay.
And I did a lot, well, I won't tip my hand too much, but during the campaign, I did a lot to reach out to Spanish speakers,
Right.
voters,
Right.
and I haven't heard from any of them.
Christian
So-
did as well, so,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
You know.
okay, well, for those of you who are interested in this issue, you just heard an invitation. I mean, Representative Shaw, definitely, he's got a lot of those folks in his district. Talk to him. So there you go. All right. So, sorry, just y'all, I can't really take a lot of questions from the audience, y'all. I've probably been too liberal about that. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I apologize for that. What's that? Okay. So, but one thing I would say to you, Representative DuBose, with regard to, because I work for the sheriff's office, so I look at these things a lot. I mean, I'm on 3 different committees right now. They're designed to combat violent crime in Jefferson County and City of Birmingham. Okay, so I work on this issue a lot. It's not the immigrants. It's just not.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
And
okay,
that's
good.
what I said.
Yes. Okay.
Immigrants are welcome,
Right.
but there are immigrants that are here illegally. That's the difference.
But it's a civil illegal. It's not a criminal
Okay,
illegal.
whatever it is, I want to differentiate between illegal immigrants that have broken additional laws and immigrants that are here.
Okay.
illegally.
Yeah, and if we're talking about immigrants who commit crimes in the state of
Yeah,
Alabama,
like the
it's a totally different
12-year-old
question.
that had to witness her mother
Sure.
and
Okay.
brother being
Well, I
chopped
mean,
up and mutilated.
you know, we can
Type of event.
we can talk about one-offs all night. I'm not going to talk about one-offs. I mean, by and large, these folks, you know, live in our community. They work in our community. They build our houses. They put roofs on our houses. They cook our hamburgers. I mean, my son's worked at Johnny Rockets for 2 years, and there was not a single legal immigrant in that kitchen. They all were there, and they were all good, upstanding citizens.
We need to
Pay
look at a
taxes.
pathway to citizenship. That's certainly
Yay!
be improved.
Yes!
Visas and more pathway to citizenship.
Absolutely.
That process is way too complicated and takes far too long.
Absolutely.
Here, here.
Absolutely. My future daughter-in-law is a citizen of the nation of China. And she has to go home every year for 6 weeks and spend 6 weeks in China and come back. And she's a very valuable worker in Nashville and engaged to my son. I'm learning Mandarin so I can go to China for their wedding in December. But you know, but her requirements for that visa are ridiculous. I mean, we really do need a more common sense immigrant. Okay, well, good. Glad that we agree on that. Okay, so the second, Ashley Dunham, I'm going to make an exception. Do you want to? So we have, y'all want to say hello to? We have here the individual who probably knows more about IVF in the state of Alabama than anyone who's not a doctor who is performing IVF. Okay, so Ashley, welcome. Ashley is a referee in the family court of Jefferson County. Does an excellent job there. And Ashley, do you want to ask? I'll give you the privilege of just asking your question about IVF to these 2 folks, if you don't mind.
Of course. So about a year ago, our state had the privilege of embarrassing us in front of the entire nation with that fetal personhood ruling. So what's being done to give us full permanent access and protection of IVF, and this is a multi-parter. In addition to that, are there any regulations that are being suggested? And if there are, have y'all talked to the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, which is located in Vestavia?
Well, I will say within 5 days of that court ruling, we passed a bill, and I'm sure you were paying attention.
Which is
that allowed all the
unconstitutional,
IVF clinics open and gave immunity to the IVF clinics.
Yes, and it is unconstitutional, so is there any steps being taken to
And it's
amend the
what? I didn't
Constitution?
say.
Yeah, it's being challenged on constitutionality issues.
So are there any
Everything
steps
is
that are
done.
being taken to amend the Constitution so that that stays in place, so that all the people who utilize IVF are able to continue to do so?
Well, you said it's unconstitutional. Has the court ruled on that yet?
But no,
they
they're
had
almost certainly
challenged
going
it. There
to.
was a challenge, but then they decided to dismiss that in November. Nobody even knew
I
this
mean, the
because
bill that we
nobody's
passed
talking about
actually
it
is
anymore.
very favorable to IVF clinics. So where things are right now is excellent. Bills get challenged all the time. That doesn't mean it's gonna overturn it.
It's not.
But I'm just saying that, the bill, what we did in 5 days to reopen all these IVF clinics was very favorable to IVF clinics.
It was,
And
but not to the patients. Because
Why
if you
not?
think, why not?
Yeah.
Because it gave civil and criminal immunity to providers to producers of goods and services
Agreed,
related to
agreed,
IVF. So
agreed.
then, if you think about it, say that the embryo solution that was sent from New York, there's a company, Cooper Surgical. They sent an embryo solution that made all of the embryos they used arrest. So the embryos were, as Tom Parker would say,
I see where
die.
you're going. I agree.
Yes, so then
We
that
need
leaves those people without
communities.
any.
We need to tighten it up,
I-
yeah, I agree.
I have not heard of any proposed IVF regulations. I'm not on the health committee though. They would
We
probably-
have a committee, a subcommittee that's been studying that. I don't know that that's gonna come up this year, but I agree on the immunity, and that's a personal concern of mine as well.
All right, thank you, Ashley. All right, so you knew we had to get to this. I'm gonna read this question as it was handed to me, because it expresses what about a half dozen other people sent to me. One of my extended family members is a loving, hardworking, one of the most generous people I know. She is also transgender. Why focus your priority on removing the rights of transgender people to basic self-determination, or to make them, different than what they are and intend to be? Why was that such a priority in this legislative session?
You're talking about what is a woman bill?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I work on lots of bills, and we do lots of bills in our legislature, but this happens to be one of the very first ones I started working on. And the purpose of that bill has nothing to do with eliminating transgender people, or taking away any of their rights, or letting them identify any way that they want to, right? It has nothing to do with gender identification. And y'all can have it what you think.
Yeah, I think people in the room would disagree with you.
Yeah, I think we're fundamentally gonna disagree.
Right, and
Probably so,
I
right?
would like to finish, if y'all will let me.
That's right, let her finish.
If y'all will let me. The bill defines male, female, mother, father, daughter, son, boy, girl.
So yes, yeah, that's
So,
right.
because when those words were used in our laws, and for example, woman has been used 147 times in our laws over the past decades and decades and decades. It was assumed that the biological definition was the intent of that word. Everybody agreed on the definition of woman over the decades when these laws were written. So this clarifies for the courts and for transparency what the meaning of that word is.
So it was
Okay,
easier.
so for example, I'm working on a bill that exempts, I'm just gonna give you an example, that exempts breastfeeding women from jury duty. This is a bipartisan legislation that you may have heard about. Thank you. So that will apply to the definition of woman, which is a biological woman.
So
Okay,
women
a
are
trans woman,
reproductive organs.
a trans woman will not be eligible to be exempt from jury duty. Because a trans woman doesn't have. So you asked me, I know, isn't that crazy? But you asked me, why the definition matters, the definition.
What about
passionate?
Listen, I know fundamentally we're gonna disagree on this.
What about trans? Yeah, you don't believe that there's only two sexes, and that there's male and female?
That's not even.
I have a question on this point.
Biologists?
On this point, so, let me just ask it in a very general way, and Representative Shaw, I'll ask it to you. So, understanding, I think I heard Representative DuBose say this was not about transgender rights, it wasn't about preventing things. So, would you be willing, would you have any qualms about passing some sort of statute that actually protects the rights of transgender people?
Yeah.
So it protects, for instance, their right to have top surgery in the state of Alabama.
So that's a tough one, because I come from multiple generations of doctors, and I broke the mold, I didn't do that, but one of the first rules is they help people. Cutting off healthy breasts, cutting or hysterectomy on a healthy person.
So you're against hysterectomies for women?
20% likely to commit suicide.
Okay.
I know we're not gonna agree.
I got you. David Hunter. Wait.
BRCA
Sorry.
positive women
David, are you good?
who
David,
decided
you wanna ask something?
Yes.
bilateral breast mastectomies prior to the onset of cancer.
True, right. And they do that often. That's right.
I'm sorry, I just want to make it clear that when you
Okay,
say,
Mark, hold up.
when
David.
you say that a trans operation is on a healthy person, gender dysphoria
Ah.
is not a healthy person. You can disagree on the item of
We're not gonna agree on
whether
this.
you're
I
right.
mean,
But here's the facts are
DSM.
don't pass
that
laws.
these people commit suicide at a higher rate
Yeah.
than the general population.
True, true, I mean,
And if that is not a good definition for an unhealthy person,
Isn't top surgery
And I-
legal in our state for adults?
well,
said protect.
but it might be now, but what I'm saying is,
No, it is.
would you be in favor of protecting?
like I said, I
So-
mean, if
It's
somebody
already
wants to do
legal
it
in
with
our state, it's
a-
not
a-
illegal.
Okay,
law
so,
that protect it matters, it matters, right? I don't-
so it is true, for those of you who haven't seen the statistics, that since a certain event occurred on November 5th of 2024, calls to suicide hotlines by transgender people are through the roof. Because of their fear of what might happen to them under the current administration. Okay, I'm asking you, is there anything the Alabama legislature can do to assuage those fears, to help those people
Let me just
understand,
say-
to try to prevent them
Let me
from
just say
killing
this,
themselves?
and I have said this publicly.
Okay.
Every human being, transgender, whatever every one of those initials are, deserves to live in our community. I'm sorry, y'all, LGBTQI+, did I get it right? Anyway, every person deserves to be treated with respect,
Okay.
dignity, love. They should be able to work, live, and play in our community, all of us
Okay.
together.
What is respectful about legally defining me as a woman? What is respectful about legally defining me as a woman?
I say this all the time. If they are not being treated, if they are being
Shaw, you voted
denied
for
a
it.
job
We are
or
gonna do it.
housing or anything, that's wrong. That should not be going on, and we need to know about it.
So everybody is aware, I am now, according to her bill, legally a woman.
So, all right, we have.
So I will be using women's spaces when her bill goes into effect, starting on October 1st. And I'm sorry, Wayne, I wasn't going to interrupt. I was trying to just, but I have talked to Representative DuBose actually about potentially doing a bill to enshrine rights. I asked her in her office after her bill passed if she would be willing to put forth a narrow bill to allow gender marker changes, because my gender marker on my document says F. And if I didn't tell you, Representative Shaw, you wouldn't have known. You didn't know.
I remember you from Hoover meetings back in the day.
Okay, well, in that case, thank you.
It's good to see you again, though.
Yes, well, I had to travel a good bit up here.
Thanks for
Legal to
being-
have your birth certificate changed once you've had all the surgeries in the state of
No, you just made it illegal. You legally define me as a woman. I have a uterus. I have,
Okay,
But what is a woman doing?
how do you not understand a bill you worked on for 3 years?
Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire says he wants to eradicate transgenderism from daily life of Americans.
okay, there you
I
go.
don't even know
All right,
that
so wait,
person.
one more,
I'm sorry.
so.
I named it after that. I named it during that Supreme Court hearing, whenever the senator asked the Supreme Court justice if she knew, do you know what a woman is? That's where I got the name.
Okay,
So I'm not
how
sure
did you
what
get the
your
idea
name
for
is.
this bill?
So wait, I'm gonna give you guys their hand up right there. You have an opportunity real quick, just ask very quickly, and then we're gonna move on from this issue right after this, okay?
Sorry,
From Alshire.
Is that Allison?
hey guys, Allison.
Hey, I do recognize you.
I'm dressed kind of bikey today, but it is what it is. I'm a big old Les. But yeah, so let's see if I can maybe help the discussion a
And
little
you're
bit.
from Huntsville.
I am, yes.
Yes, and it's
I'm
good to
down
see
here
you
for a punk show for my friend's birthday, and this happened to line up, which is why I'm dressed like this. But yeah, so like, let's see. As for the point about asking about top surgery, so some non-transgender, or we say for short cis or cisgender boys who are, they're born and the doctor says it's a boy, and that works out for them, thankfully. So these cisgender boys, some of them end up having a condition called gynecomastia. And I'm sure all the men in the room can attest to, if you grew breasts, that would be pretty shocking and disturbing to you, right? You wouldn't want to grow breasts. And unfortunately that does happen to some boys who are going through puberty, gynecomastia. And so these cisgender boys can sometimes get what amounts to the same kind of top surgery that that person was talking about to alleviate the gender dysphoria of these cis boys. And so something that's really helped me to understand is like, oh, these trans boys are just like these cis boys. you know, they're going through these changes to their body that like just don't match up with what their brain is expecting their body to be and like who they are as people inside. You know, like we have a lot of like terminology that there we go. I hope I'm actually heard. We have like a lot of terminology that is like foreign, that is like a regular part of discussing these kinds of things, and I completely understand. It's like it's hard to get your head around at first, for sure, and especially when like we use so much jargon in the discussion, right? So yeah, the gender identity that you'll hear about a lot. That's just, you know, you have an identity as a person. It's the gender part of that. You know, like it's how you know you're a man or you're a woman, even without anybody telling you, even without, you know, even if your body was different, you would still go, well, wait a minute, I am who I am. Let's see, the other point was, oh yeah, so like you know, I'm not making the best case for myself for womanhood right now.
It's okay.
We'll follow you.
Yep.
Lesbians.
We're already short of time though, so.
Womanhood.
Yep.
Gotcha. But you know, so it's been uniquely frustrating as a woman who's had to like really work for it and really struggle to get to where I am today. I read this bill and it talks about. It may not talk about me directly, but it does describe me. And that's been really difficult to see this go through with no consideration for how it will affect people like me. And just seeing it be unclear, like the ways in which it will affect me, because there is, right, current state law that allows for the change of gender markers. I've used that process myself. However, the passage of this law makes the code in conflict with itself. And so unless we provide a carve out there, transgender people will suffer. And thank you so much for accepting Neil's amendment on that last year. I really wish that it had been accepted this year, or even the amendment to prohibit the establishment of any kind of bathroom police.
Last
I
year's
don't know why
bill
that
had a
was
few
in
more
there.
amendments, it just didn't get passed to the Senate.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So would y'all be amenable to, would you push as hard for a carve out to keep us free as you would for that bill?
I'll have, you know, I don't really understand enough about gender markers to answer that question.
Sure.
And I don't understand enough about, I mean, our current law, the way we have it, through the judge of probate, that may have been the process that you went through to get your birth certificate changed once you've had surgery.
Right.
You know, as far as I know, that process is still in place. I mean, it does show an asterisk, it does say your sex has been changed. So it's known, you know, that you were originally a woman and went through a process and now you're a man and, or whichever way.
Backwards, you got it, you got it.
Yeah.
But anyway, there is
Yeah.
currently that process. I haven't heard that process is gonna be eliminated. I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
Representative Shaw, you want to say anything about this, or you want to move on?
Not really, I mean, like, the thing I think is important about is when we write laws, we're actually more careful than people think, at least I am. I don't know about the body, but this is all a new thing. You know, I mean, and when we get calls from people who have had, my daughter went to him, and there was a boy next to her, they were getting dressed, and so, well, he wants to be a girl now. I mean, these things.
Have you gotten one of those calls?
Yeah, so, so, this is a big change, big societal change, and I'll say, this is an 80% thing. You know, this is, the people who elect us, or when those things are happening, in the boys and girls sports, I mean, that's just not fair. I mean, and a lot of Democrats in the House agree with us on that, you know.
So it's that
It's such a non-issue though.
Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's
this
an
is
issue
very,
that happens to your child.
very few.
If it happens to your child, it's an issue.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on. I got two more subjects covered in like 6 minutes. So, this one, I was, so yeah, all right. So it wasn't, but that's, you know, I'm going from the questions that people asked me, but I'll give you an opportunity to talk about school choice at the end. How about that? Okay, so it's all good.
Nobody
Yeah, that's right. So, But something everybody really does care about, I think this one will be a quick answer, I hope so anyway. This is one that I got 2 or 3 people ask me, it's sort of, no, this is not federal, this is, we've been asked, there's a huge majority, to your point, over 80% of the people in the state of Alabama believe that contraception should be protected. But there were bills to do so that apparently have died. Is there, I mean, do you guys believe in a person's right to contraception, even as a pro-life person?
Yeah.
Do you think it should be a protected right in Alabama, or is it something we just don't need to worry about?
I'll answer that. Yes, I believe in contraception.
Okay?
There is no movement that I'm aware of, that I've ever heard of.
Oh, there's plenty.
Anyone that's trying to
It's called the
stop
Roman Catholic Church.
Grandma's
Methodism.
Just a second.
Methodist.
No, there is no movement that I'm aware of or that to eliminate contraception.
Okay.
Now, if you're a practicing Catholic and you don't want to use contraception, or you're a faith-based organization and you don't want to pay for contraception, that's your right. But we're not trying to take it away from the general public. Nobody is. I don't understand where that's coming from.
I think to say nobody is wrong. There are people that are.
Nobody.
And so she passed the
Say
bill,
now.
HB 178, that would remove the talk about contraceptives in sex education, would completely wipe it.
Okay, oh wait, let me back that up. I
Yeah,
read
yeah.
that bill. It explicitly does not, it explicitly does talk about contraception. And I have been to the sex ed classes and I've heard those discussions and I've been very embarrassed, but I listen to it anyway because it needs to be discussed and it is discussed. And
The bill
there's
is to remove it,
absolutely no movement.
To focus on
So
abstinence
if there
only.
becomes a movement, will you guarantee that you will fight?
Yes, yes.
No.
We will fight against abstinence. I heard that bill on the condition that contraception discussions were gonna be included.
Okay.
Did you read it? I read the whole bill, I have right to
Only
read it.
education raises the rates of teen pregnancy dramatically.
What was that?
Abstinence-only education raises the rates of teen pregnancy dramatically, so what is the point?
Yeah. Okay.
That's
factual.
All
The
right.
point is we're updating a lot of our terminologies, we're making sure there's a lot of things that goes on in this.
Like,
Okay. Alabama has already been.
If there was a big
absolutely-
effort, or we saw some serious effort, then sure, but that'd be a
Now, look,
pretty
contraception's
specific bill
been
to have.
discussed,
Gotcha.
a lot of important, a lot of things are discussed in sex ed. And I agree that it should be in schools, there are some people that don't, and I agree that it should be optional, that parents should be able to opt out. So that's one thing I'm trying to make clear, is that it's optional. So anyway, the point is, to your question, I believe in contraception, and I believe it should be discussed and taught along with STDs and a lot of important information that teenagers need.
Okay.
Let's not
Okay, so,
eliminate it.
about to run out of time. I'm gonna be very selfish and ask a question that applies to me. It doesn't really apply to me, but it applies to most people in this room know, my passion issue is people are mentally ill. I mean, I have a lot of mental illness in my family. Their addiction is rampant in my family. For those who haven't heard the story, I mean, my dad was orphaned at the age of 6 because of alcohol addiction. That's why I don't drink. If anybody wants to know why I don't share your wines, because but I have found that one of the biggest places, one of the most significant treatments of mental illness in the state of Alabama is really in our prison system. I mean, we see at the Jefferson County Jail, and the reason, honest to goodness, the reason Mark Petway gave me my job, he said, Wayne, we've got to do better by our inmates, their mental health system. So that's something that, you talk about federal issues, but this is very much a state issue. Can you guys give us an idea of what's going on in regard to mental health funding? Is there going to be an increase? Is there going to be a decrease? Are we going to, I think there are some of, along with transgender people, along with immigrants, some of the most vulnerable people in our society. What efforts are you guys making to ensure that people with mental illness are better taken care of in our state?
Well, I'll answer first. So I lost someone very close to me with
Yeah.
mental illness. It was terrible experience, bipolar, and went all over the state. Had to go to probate multiple times and try to get it, and all the resources in the world, and still kill it. So I would remember, we're freshmen and we're not in some of the committee that can do
Sure.
stuff. I would absolutely support more funding. How it's spent is very important, but I mean, that's something that's very important to my family, and I know it's important to everybody else's family, and I would be more than willing to work on the specifics of how that, because I got a maybe a 2-year degree, we call it, in that process and how it failed, so that care about it.
Yes, and we see it every day, so.
And I think that's one issue that we can all agree on, that mental health in our state is deplorable. We know that, it's been an emphasis of the Speaker of the House, I've heard him mention it many
Well,
times.
why do we keep building prisons and not giving back into our community?
So our prison should not be a place to house mentally ill
Yes,
people.
amen to that.
We agree with it.
Yes.
It takes time to fix all these things, and from what I understand, this started decades ago, when we closed down some of our institutions, and the money was not reallocated.
Started with Robert Bentley.
Like it should have been, so it's a problem, it is a problem, we know that, and I know we are putting a lot of money in our Shelby County,
Y'all said no to Medicaid for all.
and so, y'all want me to answer this question?
Yeah, really.
I don't have to.
It's okay. All right, so it's 8 o'clock, I know it's time for you guys to go, but I will throw you the big softball, Representative DuBose, and say, tell us about school choice.
Nobody wants to hear it.
No, they do, seriously.
Does anybody want to hear about it?
Some people do.
I wanna hear about it.
Okay, there you go, so you don't want anybody to get up and you leave now. All right.
I'll give you a quick one-liner. Okay, so we have passed school choice.
2
I
minutes.
just want y'all to know about it. We have passed school choice in the state of Alabama. It goes into effect next fall. This is the sign-up period. If you have any children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever, that may, for some reason, want to go to a different school than their public school, there are $7,000 available this year and next year to students and families that make less than 300% of poverty rate, which is about $95,000 for a family of 4. This gives a child an opportunity, if they want to go to the Spring Valley Dyslexia School.
Which is $20,000 a year.
Highland School is $20,000 a year.
I get that, but if you want to go to a parochial school, which is under $7,000 a year, if you want to go to John Carroll, there are private Christian schools that are less than
So
$1,000.
religious schools are the only ones that fit the
Private
bill.
schools, you have to be a Christian.
Okay.
This is optional. I'm giving you the option to think about it. If you know anybody that would like to have another option, not all children fit in every school. They need special. So we're not taking money from public schools.
Where's the public school?
We allocated $100 million from a supplement, we have just so y'all know, we have a $10 billion educational trust fund.
So why do our schools
$1
suck?
billion.
So put the money into the public schools where everyone is able to access them. We can have bathrooms that are non-gendered. We can have all kinds of great things.
Here, $100 million for school choice. About 16,000 out of 720,000 students will have this opportunity. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. I just want to tell y'all about it.
Okay.
Because I think that there are some people that may be interested in it.
Okay, Representative
It's a good
Datcher
opportunity for some.
Representative Datcher has asked for a moment of personal privilege, so.
I've actually learned how to say that.
Yes.
I also know where the bathrooms are in the park, but first of all, so my new colleagues, I've been there 3 weeks now, 9 days I think we've done, or March, maybe tomorrow, day 9. But Susan, Mike, and Leigh have been phenomenal to me. And they don't have to be to a black Democrat from West End, Birmingham, whose vote they don't need. And so, I might disagree with them on 8 out of 10 issues, but I'm hoping that we're building a kind of relationship that we can work together on the other 2. So that's where we're trying to go. I know Wayne's going to do it. I do want to thank all 3 of them for coming tonight. I do want to say this one thing about this one issue, because Susan and I disagree on it, but I think our heart's in the right place. I just disagree with her. I think school choice isn't real in how we approach it. I think if we want to say school choice is real, then let every kid that goes to a public school go to any public school they want to in Alabama. That's not going to
And I
happen.
like that idea too.
Because they don't want every kid to go to Mount Brook. Or they don't want every kid to go to That's
The Hoover schools are so great, let everybody go here.
Let me finish. I don't want to back and forth. I just want to, because 7,000, my kids go to a private school. But I went to a public school that, my mom put 5 kids through college only because we had a really good public school in my small town in Western Alabama. and 5 kids went to college, amazingly, through that small public school. $7,000 doesn't approach what I pay for my kids at Advent. And my choice is, I don't drive a new car so my kids can go get that education. So that's that choice. And everybody was right. $7,000 doesn't begin to cover. So if we want to be authentic about school choice, I think we make every kid go to every school, or every kid get a scholarship totally that covers every school. So that's where it's going to be really equal about that opportunity. I do appreciate Susan, because I think she honestly cares about this issue.
Okay.
We had
Last word.
1,200 kids in the city of Birmingham sign up for school choice so far. Those are 1,200 kids whose life will be transformed. Because you've ever looked at the scores in our Birmingham public schools, they are deplorable. It's embarrassing.
Not all of them, Susan, not all of them, so don't.
Not all of them, but the vast majority.
Some really good ones were in my
We're
district.
jumping on Kelvin's
I know, but the vast
The
majority
Ramsey High
of
School's in my
public
district.
schools, and so those kids are gonna have a chance to have their life transformed. That's what I
Okay.
And if I could just say real quick, look, Kevin's brand new, so like you said, we all had orientation as freshmen because we came in on an election cycle. These poor guys and gals, you're in the middle of everything. You don't, seriously, you don't know where the bathroom is, you don't know where a lot of that stuff is. But I'm really, some of my best friends in the house are becoming, Democrats. I sit in several of them. Now, we disagree on anything education, we disagree on anything regarding the police, anything.
Not anything.
Well, a lot of stuff. Law and order and
Way to
stuff.
be on our side.
But, we try to respect the office of each other, because these are elected offices and they deserve respect. We'll be in and out of it somehow, but we're enjoy getting to know Kevin so far, and then, he said it's too over for me, so.
All right. Okay,
Thank
so
you all.
I'm going to turn it back over to our chair, Christian Coleman. Thanks you everyone for being here. Appreciate all of your great questions. I promise, I will synthesize the questions that are similar. And if your question did not get answered tonight, I'm going to get it to these 3 folks, and I will get the answers back through Christian and the Hoover Democrats. Christian, it's all yours, buddy.
Way to go, Wayne. Get your own talk show.
Wayne did a pretty good job, right? I appreciate the representatives coming to something that could have been slightly hostile. But, we are their constituents as well. We pay you. I mean, not me, I don't pay no taxes, that kind of things, but they pay you, the people with real jobs, military.
Hey, Christian, can I say one thing very quickly? I just want to make it very clear. Hoover Democrats has no connection other than by similar views to the Alabama Democratic Party, the Shelby County Democratic Party, the Jefferson County Democratic Party. Hoover Democrats uses the name Democrats because of how we believe, but this is not an official party function. Anybody who thought it was, you're not an official party function, okay? We'll find your official party function if you need to come to one. This is not one, okay? This is a group of people, there you go. This is a group of people who believe similarly, who vote similarly, who have very different view of the issues than these folks do. But I just want to make very clear, this is not an official Democratic Party function, okay? And it never is. Hoover Dems never will be. Okay, sorry. I should have said that earlier.
Yes. Do not, go to Wayne's Jefferson County Democrats mad about, what I've done here.
Or mad about what I've done here, please.
But I can get you his phone number though if you want to.
Hey, I'll talk to anybody. Y'all know that.
Yes, thank you to the representatives. We are going to have another Hoover Democrats meeting at some date that somebody else will know.
It's probably not going to be the 24th of March because that is spring break. So it's probably going to be the 31st.
Yeah.
Are we right? 31st of March, you think? Will be the next meeting.
Yeah, and
Or maybe the 17th of March.
I might be on an airport.
17th of March.
Not sure.
St. Patrick's Day. Wear green like Mark Garfield did.
All right, 17th of March, same Batman time.